A new study led by Barbara Mills from the School of Anthropology is revealing how social networks like the ones we use today had existed centuries before the creation of the internet.
We're called the Southwest Social Networks Project. It started about 5 years ago. It's a group of sociologists, anthropologists, archaeologists, geochemists, and even a computer scientist. And our goal is to apply social network analysis to archaeological materials from the Southwest. Obviously, we can't interview people about who was interacting with who, so what we are looking at instead is at shared material culture. So material culture being artifacts, and in our case, we're looking at ceramics and stone artifacts.
Professor Mills' study was dependent on the artistic recipes exchanged between women of the Pre-Hispanic era from the years 1200 to 1500.
We're trying to look at who shares the same proportions of decorated ceramics at one site versus another site, and we do that for every single pair of sites in our sample, which amounts to hundreds and hundreds of archaeological sites. And our total sample of ceramics is 4.3 million objects, of which 800,000 are decorated. So our networks are built by pairwise comparisons of the counts of polychrome and other decorated ceramics at each site.
The most challenging obstacle of this study was organizing the database to catalog the millions of objects collected. The housekeeping of the database took almost 3 years before the researchers really got to analyze the material.
What we were really surprised about was how much people shared information about how to make and consume and use ceramics over very long distances, some in fact more than 250 kilometers away. The major difference between the social networks of today that we read about in the newspapers or in scholarly publications is that they aren't as long. They don't have the time depth that archaeology can provide. Much of it is beautifully decorated. So one of the things that we've discovered is that the networks that might be called small worlds, where everybody's connected to everybody else, those aren't permanent. They can actually fragment, they can break apart, they can collapse, if you will. Some of our new research, in fact, is about persistence. Why do some places on the landscape persist? Is it because of their position in the network? Is it because they were more central to the network, for example? It might add to the persistence of a network to be part of this technological network, but it might also make our networks more susceptible because certain parts or certain nodes may be very key to the network. And if you remove those nodes, if something happens, like a natural disaster, then that might change the network to a very large degree. In fact, we're becoming ever more connected, but based on our archaeological research, that won't last forever. The worlds will break apart, the networks will break apart. And so understanding how and why that happens should be relevant to today.
Professor Mills is currently working on extending the time frame of her research back to the year 800 CE. A summary of her current work can be found in an article published in the March issue of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences Journal, under the title, Transformation of Social Networks in the Late Pre-Hispanic U.S. Southwest.